English translation, 377th. Contact Part 2. Saturday, 12th February 2005, 15:11 hours.
About Billy's position in FIGU and among the core group members by Bernadette Brand, Switzerland.
In order to be able to explain Billy's position in the FIGU and among the core group members, it is necessary to give a brief outline of the state of our world and the image that those human beings have of him who do not know him, but nevertheless allow themselves to judge him. The prophet is of no account in his own country, as the saying goes, and in Billy's case it is fair to say that the prophet is of no account on his own planet either. This is not because his words do not stir up the human beings and would even appear unreasonable or wrong to them. The situation is not that simple. Basically, it has to be considered that on our planet, due to historical handed-down understandings and traditions, it is mainly those who are unscrupulous enough to disregard the interests of all others and only do their own thing who hold the reins. The peoples are not adult and mature enough to see through the moves of their leaders, and if they do, they usually lack the self-confidence and the awareness of their might to change something. This then leads to everyone hiding in their nests and thinking that everything is fine as long as the situation remains bearable for themselves. This attitude of the people is, of course, more than just comfortable for the superiors, the governments, and all kinds of exploiters of the people, which is why a lot of emphasis is also placed on maintaining these conditions, which is achieved by ensuring on the broadest level that normal human beings are deprived of much that they urgently need to learn. Things such as real reflection, factual and constructive consideration of proposals, taking responsibility for one's own decisions and weighing the consequences of them, reflecting on the value of real communities, or becoming aware that the people themselves must be the most important and most powerful force in a state structure, and that its leaders only have the right to act for the good of the people and in their service. And many other considerations are never even brought to the people and never deepened in their scope and consistency. Should it occur to anyone to devote himself or herself to these subjects in public and to explain life and its natural rules to the common human beings, then he or she immediately becomes the target of the most manifold attacks, and all those who have some personal interest in keeping everything as it is in a bad wise will spare no means to shoot them down by making them the target of their ridicule, slander, false accusations, and unjustified malice. This is simply because the thought that the masses could finally become self-responsible, self-confident, and mature makes them completely panic out of fear of losing their well-furnished sinecures, their positions of power, their prestige, and their validity. Quite a few of these superiors, rulers, leaders, and exploiters of the people freeze at the very thought that their dirty tricks and their intrigues could come to light and they could be called to account, thus losing everything to which their heart is attached. The so-called ordinary citizens, kept dumb and misled by false teachings and irrelevant goals, bleat unthinkingly after their leaders and fall for any mirror fencing, however primitive, thereby blindly and unthinkingly supporting and trotting after those who lead them to ruin. The important aspirations they are led to believe are exhausted in primitive cultural achievements, such as the latest concert by the hottest pop singer or the wackiest CD by the hippest music group or the biggest monumental film that one absolutely has to see because the sexiest man alive and the latest female beauty icon play important roles in it. But it can also be the first novel of the latest discovery, or the late work of a famous writer in literary circles, or countless other banalities, to which there is nothing wrong as a distraction or short-term amusement, as long as they retain their status as what they actually are, namely banalities. But if such trivialities are elevated to the status of life importances, and at the same time all that is reasonable, all that is correct according to the laws of nature, all virtues and all profound values are sacrificed for the sake of the cheap golden calf, then it becomes dark in the world. And in this darkness, human beings must go astray and fall into abysses, because they can no longer see any paths that could lead them out of the swamp of false images of life that has been prepared by ruthless and evil Machiavellianism. Billy went public now 30 years ago, founded the Free Community of Interests, built up the Simyase Silver Star Center, and began tirelessly to spread his teaching about the correct life conduct for human beings according to natural law, about the meaning and purpose of life and the necessary evolution. Gradually, in a constant coming and going, the present members of the Figu gathered around him, who recognized the importance of his mission, let themselves be taught and supported him in his tireless work in many manner of doings and continue to do so. In any other community in our world, he would be the adored and beneficial leader who would let himself be worshipped, cared for, idolized, and paid dearly for his teaching. His only task would be to shine before the world at all times and to show how superior he himself, his own knowledge and his own merits were, while the ignorant and stupid members were dependent on their own grace. But the Figu is something like Little Borum, the Gallic village from the famous and popular comic series Asterix and Obelix, which fearlessly resists the Romans, and in which nothing, but also nothing at all, is done like in the Roman world. And because this is so, Billy is the founder and leader of the Figu and a teacher of its members. But he is nevertheless nothing other than also just a normal core group member with absolutely the same rights as any other member. He is also nothing different from anyone else in living together in the community, except that he far, far outshines us all in his modesty, in his willingness to work hard, in his tirelessness, in his attentiveness, and in his far-sightedness. Although he is worlds, or rather universes, superior to all of us in everything, he never plays up this superiority, but lives as one among all in the community. The equality and equal rights of all members, initiated by him and his teaching, are of great concern to him, and above all, he always lives and emphasizes the equal value of all. For him, no member is worth more or is more important than another. Positions in the Figu say nothing about the value or standing of a human being. They simply outline tasks that have to be fulfilled. The leader is equal to the ordinary core group member without executive duties, just as the president is equal to the actuary, the deputy treasurer to the accountant or a board member. Neither the president nor the executive committee have superior rights or competences at the General Assembly. The leadership of the Figu is always at the service of the community and is therefore nothing other than the executive of the General Assembly, to which all core group members belong and in which all are equally entitled to vote and make decisions. Billy, who does not occupy a special position in the organizational, structural framework of the Figu, but is just as much a core group member with equal value and equal rights as all the other core group members, also adheres to this regulation. The difference to the other core group members is solely conditioned by his mission, through which he is called to be a teacher and herald of the spiritual teachings, and in the context of which he is appointed as the wise teacher, the counselor, and the far-sighted leader of the Figu. From this, however, he derives for himself no rights or privileges, no claims, benefits, and reliefs, but increased responsibility and never-ending obligation. The consequence of his leadership is a tremendous burden for him, under the yoke of which he not only suffered a serious health breakdown in November 1982, but which also imposes other inhuman burdens on him. under the weight of which, however, he does not waver for a moment or pant for relief. For the core group members, he is wise counselor, last straw, rock of strength, reliable and fatherly friend, consistent teacher, empathetic and understanding confidant, exemplary boss, light in the darkness, psychologist and psychiatrist, faithful companion, reliable support, beloved father, comrade, brother and comforter, and infinitely more. For each member of the core group, he means something different in detail, and he alone achieves the incomparable feat of being one of the most important human beings in life for each. Without, however, preferring one over the other, showing no more sympathy and love to anyone than to the other, favoring or disadvantaging none, and valuing none more than the other. He alone is able to give everyone the feeling of importance, irreplaceability, and uniqueness, the feeling of being accepted, respected, and loved, and this without arousing envy or ill will on a large scale, because each member knows that he or she is dear to him, and that all others are equally dear to him. None, except his closest family, basks more in the light of his friendship, his love and wisdom than the others, and each receives from him precisely what they need in the always correct and digestible dosage. For all of them, he is the most important teacher, reliable helper of evolution and constant guide, admonisher of the good and correct and minstrel of creational omnipotence. His wisdom and prudence are the refuge and last bastion for all, and the spirit teaching, aka creation energy teaching, which he teaches, and of which he is the sage, is the silent sword and the glittering light of the revolution of truth, which shows all a better, a harmonious, loving, and humane world and future, which can be won if the fighters of the revolution become as tireless, proactive, brave, and purposeful as he himself is. For all core group members, he is ultimately the epitome of a true human being, even if they sometimes doubt and question him. If they get angry with him, mock one of his all-too-human mistakes, or pull their heads between their shoulders under the loud might of his word and see that they are gaining ground. Not everything he does can win the favor of the members, and this is not only good, but also wise and important, for it prevents him from becoming the adored cult guru to whose lips the members cling and to whose words they become in bondage. He knows the secret of the correct measure of attention, advice, friendship, attention, appreciation, and distance. He is teacher and educator, role model and guide to independence, self-responsibility, and maturity, and he does not allow any dependence, only friendly love and companionable cooperation. He rejects believers' independence and snubs them in such a wise that they either leave for good or abandon their faith and their dependence. Sometimes he appears like a vision from a future, harmonious and peaceful world, and other times the whole Figu trembles under the might and volume of his words. To describe him and to outline what he means to the members of Figu is impossible, because his expressions and the meaning he has for each one are too varied. But one thing can be said with certainty and justification, and that is that each one loves him in his or her own manner, respects, cherishes, and honors him, and that his friendship is for each one a unique and precious gift, without which the world of each one of us would be dark, poor, and dull. But in our dark, disorientated, cold, and barren world full of slimy worms, like a ray from nowhere, a lighthouse beacon has risen, persistently and tirelessly sending out its light into the darkness. It shows the way to everyone who is sailing disorientedly through the heavy, black waters of his or her life and threatens to break up on the last, deadliest cliff, through the glistening brightness of its ever-recurring beam, if only she perceives it and learns to endure its glow. Boat after boat, oarsman after oarsman, gratefully following the light's instruction, some closer, others further away, but all on the long way to the saving light. and all full of gratitude for the smallest spark of brightness and hope that saves them from final ruin, even if the path through darkness and gloom, toil, hardship, and misery should still be so far. There are still only a few, but there will be more and more of them, and the light will continue to blaze tirelessly out into the world and into the universe, even when its keeper, the guardian of the light of wisdom, will be long gone.
The position of core group members in FIGU. The equality of all members and Billy, Eduard Albert Meier. Billy Eduard Albert Meier are the highest principles in the FIGU Association, by Hans-Georg Lanzendorfer, Switzerland.
The FIGU Association is exposed to many attacks and hostilities on this earth. This is mainly because, due to its organization and structure, it offers no real surface for attack to many antagonists who are only superficially concerned with the mission and tasks of the association. So, in the absence of logical arguments from the opposition, the FIGU is simply declared to be a UFO cult. The founder Billy Eduard Albert Meier. Billy Eduard Albert Meier is accused of fraud and charlatanism. The members are accused of obedience to Billy, sectarianism, and dependence. The members of the association, however, avoid any worship, personality, or worship cults such as worship of gods, religion and idols, the worship of gurus, religious saints, extraterrestrials or UFO devotional objects of any kind, etc. Nevertheless, they have respected the founder of the association, Billy Eduard Albert Meier, for decades as an exceptional personality in the leadership of the association. His advice and teachings are of great value in the personal concerns of the members or in association matters and decisions. Each core group member of FIGU has one electoral vote in group decisions, and even Billy cannot influence or overrule a unity decision which is prescribed by the statutes of the Assembly. The fact that all members are equal, which also concerns Billy Eduard Albert Meier, is a thorn in the side of many opponents of FIGU because they are unable to understand this form of cooperation in their addiction to criticism. The system, the order, the organization and structure, as well as the teaching of Billy or the FIGU Association, can only function because the cooperation, the affiliation, and the fulfillment of duty of the participants are based on absolute voluntariness and the equality of all FIGU members, including Billy Meier. According to the statutes, the resignation of members is possible at any time. The FIGU was founded in 1975 by Billy E. A. Meier, Billy Eduard Albert Meier, as an association in Hinwil. An association needs a certain number of members to realize its goals and interests. The high aims of FIGU are freedom, peace, love, harmony, justice, information, elucidation, and the spread of the spiritual teaching, creation energy teaching, etc. on planet Earth. Only those human beings who are also aware of these noble values and who also seek to strive for them in their lives can really work towards these goals. Those who confuse freedom and love with dependence and humility, as in a cult religion, with gods or gurus, etc., will not be able to fulfill the mission of the FIGU in a creational sense. For this reason, cult and delusional human beings will avoid joining FIGU, which has also been proven since the founding of the association. Nevertheless, the FIGU does not argue against the religious faith of human beings, but accepts it because a religious faith also has certain parts in relation to do with the creational, real truth, and is also, for some human beings, the only support in life. Only the false teachings and untruths of religions are frowned upon in the FIGU, but this has nothing to do with religious believers, who, like FIGU members, are equally full human beings and are also valued as such. The basic principles of equality, equal rights and equal value of all members in the sense of the primeval founder of this teaching. Nokodemion means that only those human beings can be found in the Figu who do not allow themselves to be tied into any patterns and templates of uniformed obedience, uncritical dependence, and cults of personality. The awareness of a voluntary fulfillment of duty is the ideal prerequisite for a fruitful cooperation with the Figu founder Billy Edward Albert Meier. Billy Edward Albert Meier, Ikuambaifastas, Duar, because both founder and members need each other in reciprocity and equality if the common task is to lead to the goal. A membership in the Figu is possible for every earthly or alien human being, as long as the necessary prerequisites are fulfilled according to the statutes of the Figu, which demand, among other things, a belief-based neutrality. Gender does not play a role in any kind and wise. The Figu and its members fight against Austertungen to get very badly out of the control of the good human nature of any kind, such as discrimination against lesbian, homosexual, or transsexual persons, or against members of other human races and other nationalities, etc., to whom membership of the Figu is also open. One of the most important prerequisites and conditions for membership in Figu is an open awareness and the ability to take responsibility for oneself. Figu members do not seek dependence on any doctrines, dogmas, or beliefs, and freedom in one's own opinion and personal views is one of the highest principles of the association. The philosophy of Figu is based on the directives, teachings, and advice of the extraterrestrials, as well as on the spiritual teaching of Billy. The members are instructed to familiarize themselves with the spiritual teaching of Billy Meier and the philosophy of the extraterrestrials, and to study these in detail in order to then decide for themselves about their correctness and the pros and cons. Consequently, in the Figu, there are neither any compulsions to humility, submissiveness, nor bondage. The spiritual teaching is a teaching offer and a valuable help in life for those who are interested, but not compelled and dogmatic. The Figu members have this at their disposal and learn to exercise healthy criticism of their own actions, even when dealing with Billy, who is also called Billy Edward Albert Meier, according to the first letters of his name, and his teaching as well as in relation to the advice of the extraterrestrials. There is no doubt, however, that the members of Figu are aware of their unique and extraordinary source of knowledge. They endeavor to let it flow into their daily and personal lives to the best of their ability and in due form. Each individual member of Figu is responsible for their own evidentiary conduct and learning goals. Within the association, as well as outside, there is no proselytizing in any kind and wise with personal experiences or persuasion. Rather, the members, as well as all other human beings, are instructed to remedy any euphoria and to approach the teaching with reason and wisdom, with logic and understanding. The educational and instructional work of the Figu demands a high degree of willingness to cooperate from the members. However, it is basically at the members' own discretion to make a further contribution beyond the scope of the prescribed fulfillment of duty. In spite of the high and time-consuming commitment of the members, it is the responsibility of each individual not to neglect his or her private life, privacy or personal pleasures, etc. through many years of insight and confrontation, as well as many insights and personal experiences with the real truth and the concerns about extraterrestrial visitors. The members are bound together by an invisible bond in the common fulfillment of their duties. Out of the certainty of championing a true cause, a strong and highly motivated power has grown into a strong unity in the diverse human beings of the core group of 49. This path has been stony, connected with great effort and not always without danger. Through this, Over the many years, the members of Phi Gu have developed into a community capable of great achievement, based on the values and supreme principles of equality, equal value and equal standing of all male and female members, the alien visitors, and Billy Edward Albert Meier. The members of Phi Gu are a diverse community from different professional and social backgrounds. Among them are academics, craftsmen from all kinds of professions, simple workers, health professionals, farmers as well as pedagogues, etc., which is also transferable to the passive group members, in which all conceivable training and professions are represented, up to and including theologically trained staff. The maintenance of the center, as well as the fulfillment of the association's purpose, offers a wealth of tasks and work that have to be done on a daily basis. The diversity of the members, their knowledge, professions, skills, and abilities enable Phi Gu to draw on large and extensive resources. In this manner, under the personal commitment of Billy, a well-rehearsed and high-working culture has developed in Hinterschmidruti, from which over 400 individual Phi Gu products, the paradisiacal gem Semjase Silver Star Center, as well as an excellent infrastructure, have emerged in the meantime. All Phi Gu members have also never shied away from doing very hard manual work, which resulted in dirt on the hands, face, body, and clothes, whereby it is to be said that in this respect, Billy Edward Albert Meier has probably done the very most throughout all time. In Phi Gu, all areas of responsibility are seen as a unit of a large network. Only what holds together on a small scale can exist and be successful on a large scale. Therefore, the work of each individual member is of equal and great importance, whether it is cleaning, environmental or gardening work, maintaining the computer network or the buildings, or dealing with correspondence, general Phi Gu services, or correcting and printing the writings. No task is too big and no job too menial not to be done by each and every member. No one is too beautiful, too intelligent, too noble, or too knowledgeable for himself or herself not to take on unpleasant jobs such as cleaning the toilets when the lot calls for it. And even Billy does not shy away from washing his own plates or his own cups, or, if sometimes necessary, teaching himself in manual matters how to handle a tool or carry out a job. Electrical work also still falls within his remit today, if skilled craftsmen do not have to be called in order to save money. The specialist areas of responsibility are clearly regulated and are based on the individual skills and interests of the members. Compulsory duties such as night watches, Sunday duties, work assignments, or correction work are shared equally by all members. There is no doubt that Billy Edward Albert Meier is a very exceptional and unique personality worldwide. This is confirmed by the fact alone of his contacts with the extraterrestrial visitors during their regular appearances at the Semjase Silver Star Center in Hinterschmidruti. Everyday contact and cooperation with him requires a certain degree of neutrality, respect, and esteem. A circumstance that Phi Gu members are forced to point out again and again during visitor services, when Billy is harassed by adulation or adoration phrases. Despite his function as leader of Phi Gu, he appreciates being accepted by the members as a simple human being, but not as a superhuman. Just as not being revered or regarded as a guru or saint, even though he is repeatedly accused by malicious people, slanderously and mendaciously, of allowing himself to be celebrated in this respect. His attitude lends him a high degree of credibility and makes it easier for the members to consciously work together as equals. The members' many years of experience and personal experiences with Billy Edward Albert Meier and his extraterrestrial friends have left their mark on the Phi Gu. Extraordinary experiences and incidents in the Semjase Silver Star Center are noted and documented by the members, but without going into euphoria over the incidents. The members have learnt to deal with Billy's special abilities in a calm and level-headed manner, to live and experience everything as completely normal. This normalization has also led to occasional heated discussions or disagreements among the members and with Billy. This is a very important culture of conflict in order to prevent the association from degenerating into a sect. Nevertheless, Billy is shown the necessary respect and the respect due to him, and also when he occasionally has to face critical voices within the association. Billy Edward Albert Meier sees himself as absolutely equal to the members in the Figu, and therefore he is judged, on the one hand, as a person and human being, and on the other hand, in his mission and task as a prophet of the modern times, wise teacher and counselor, as well as a contact person to the extraterrestrials. As a human being with his own personal opinion, Billy also does not always meet with joyful approval of his views among the members of the Figu. However, he has proven the truth of his contacts with the extraterrestrials countless times in the course of the past 60 years in an impressive manner. The facts and truths of his contacts are the focus of common enlightenment efforts, and as such are not doubted or criticized in the association, because open questions and ambiguities are clarified on the spot. This has less to do with blind faith or obedience to his statements, but rather with the multitude of personal experiences, clarifications and confirmations of the real truth by the individual members of the Figu. By the time human beings decide to become members of the Figu Association, they have usually already acquired a certain amount of life experience. There are only a few so far who have been in contact with Figu since birth, but this does not mean that they should join the association as a result of this fact. However, it certainly offers a great advantage to be able to grow up in the environment of Billy Edward Albert Meier, his teachings, and the members of the Figu Association. The environment places high demands on the members of Figu. On the one hand, they are occasionally accused of elitist arrogance, on the other hand of being too passive in spreading their knowledge. However, the members have learned to observe the supreme principles of Figu and neither to proselytize nor to harass the human beings with persuasion. They are aware of their own inadequacy and therefore place greater emphasis on personal learning and gaining knowledge and experience. The members are aware that they cannot fundamentally change the world overnight and that their work is at the beginning of a very long development. A development work that will take at least about 8 centuries until the first visible successes. The members of Figu are neither chosen nor a special elite. There is no competition among them about the knowledge they have acquired or their personal experience. The personal abilities, interests, skills, or commitment of each individual member are not evaluated in any wise. The form of learning or the areas of interest are a private matter for the members and are not prescribed to them by Billy Edward Albert Meier, or by the spiritual teaching, creation energy teaching, nor also by the association statutes. Likewise, it is up to the members whether and how they publicize their presence and affiliation in Figu. There are certainly good reasons for a certain reticence on the part of individual members. The mere fact that some of the members are hardly mentioned in the publications of the Figu and others are permanently mentioned is in no wise to be regarded as a measure of value for participation in the Figu. The Figu Association is based on the cooperation of all members with Billy Edward Albert Meier and the many extraterrestrial friends and visitors, whereby a large part of the work is done in secret and in the background. And there are 3 high values that make this joint work: the necessary sense of duty and self-discipline in the service of the unique Figu project possible, namely the equality, the equal value, and the equal standing all members involved and of all human beings.
The position of the core group members in FIGU by Patrick Chenot, Switzerland.
The FIGU, which in pronounced form is called Free Community of Interests for Frontier and Human Sciences and Ufology Studies, now Free Community of Interests Universal, is a venerable community of seeking and responsible human beings who are willing and sincerely striving to make something of themselves and to work out values within themselves that will not only support and advance these human beings in their development, but will be of service and benefit to all human beings and the entire fauna and flora of our beautiful blue planet Earth. FIGU, with its headquarters in Hinterschmidruti, in the Zurich uplands, in small but beautiful Switzerland, is the community and organization of the small group of human beings who have made it their task to support their personality development, spiritual evolution, true love, effective knowledge, wisdom, peace and freedom in the first place in their lives. In order to work out and realize these values as a profound aim in life, and also to be able to express these creational pearls to the outside world for the benefit and help of all forms of life. This is a task that all members of FIGU have recognized as their duty and responsibility in the search for truth, mainly towards their own lives, but also in co-responsibility towards the lives of their fellow human beings and the entire environment. The search for truth and for the profound meaning of life has led these human beings into the free community of interests, in which and with which they want to realize their tasks and goals in their lives. In order to be able to bring personality development and the evolution of consciousness, true love, wisdom, peace and freedom to constant and lasting values for development and unfolding, the free community of interests, FIGU, was founded for this purpose by Billy Edward Albert Meier in 1975, which, with a small handful of comrades in arms, was legalized on the 17th of June in 1978 as a non-profit association according to Swiss laws. The FIGU is an association that has made it its task to make the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the truth, which is also called the teaching of the life, accessible to all human beings of planet Earth, so that the human beings of this world can make use of the very valuable opportunity to work out and realize all profound and useful values in their own free recognition of duty and fulfillment of responsibility within themselves. The teaching of the Spirit, the truth and the life which Billy proclaims and teaches in cooperation with extraterrestrial humans of the Pleiaren and with very high pure spiritual levels, has a very difficult standing on the earth and among earth humans, because humans prefer to indulge in the complacency and responsibility eschewing matter of a belief in a divine power above them, in the mad delusion that this imaginary deity determines the fate of all life forms and is the source of love, blessing, joy, and happiness, but also embodies punishment and ruin. This misguided belief led people thousands of years ago to delude themselves that happiness, love, peace and freedom were to be found outside their own person, that is to say, in a deity, in a faith, in a religion, sect or other misguided worldview, in material values or in the exercise of might and dictatorship, etc. As a result, the earth human walks or staggers on more and more unreal ways of his or her life, through which she becomes more and more alienated from the truth and reality of life and the creational laws and recommendations, and ever more hostile to them, because in their error, in their delusion, in their complacency and irresponsibility, they fear and dread the truth of the life and the creation. Therefore, truth has a very difficult time with the human beings on this planet, because it is not gladly heard anywhere. Consequently, the FIGU also has a very difficult standing, because as an antipole against all the evils of this world, it is, like Billy, maliciously slandered and insulted as a sect, although there is no basis for this. Nevertheless, from all sides and from all strata of the earthly population, is the hostility to and discredit brought to Phi Gu as it is to Billy, although he and the members of the Phi Gu only pursue honorable goals and desires in their attitude and their tasks, which also benefit those who put stones and thorns in the way of the Phi Gu and its members as well as Billy, in the mistaken view that they can thereby destroy the truth. The members of the Phi Gu are human beings who have made it their own duty and task to look truth in the face through self-knowledge and personality development, in order, on the one hand, to recognize their own faults and evils and to be able to remedy them, and on the other hand, to recognize, work out, realize and bring to blossom their own possibilities and the slumbering potential of all good, lasting and creational values. What can be said very easily, however, is how tremendously onerous and difficult it is to realize in the practice of life. On our beautiful earth, as a rule, human beings live exactly the opposite of how it should be, and in the great and lethargic mass of earthly humanity, it is very rare to find a human being who could serve as a role model and offer valuable help to the human being who is trying to educate himself or herself. As an individual human being on the earth, it is now almost impossible to find one's own and correct path and to follow it consistently and persistently, because in addition to the inner resistances and countercurrents, one must also fight against an enormous power of external resistances and countercurrents. And it is mainly external resistance that results from the tremendous countercurrent of a huge overpopulation, and almost crushes the individual human beings left to their own devices and wants to drag them into certain ruin. It is also for this reason that the Phi Gu was founded, so that the human beings of this honorable community can strengthen each other in their fulfillment of responsibility and in their struggle for the good cause, namely by being there for each other in humanity and giving each other due help in every conceivable respect of life, of everyday life and its problems and difficulties, of the spiritual teaching, aka creation energy teaching, and of interpersonal matters in honest love. In doing so, the work of the individual is respected, whereby the community also functions in this respect. Therefore, it is of utmost importance that the feeling of belonging together and interpersonal connections are always actively cultivated and practiced, because only in this form does the human being gain enough strength to rise up in spite of all earthly adversities, in order to form himself or herself into a true and exemplary human being through hard work on himself or herself, who is also a worthy help to their fellow human beings through his or her virtuous nature. The teaching of the Spirit, as taught by Billy and the Phi Gu, is a systematic and practical course of instruction for human beings as an aid for self-help. The community of Phi Gu, which is divided into a core group of the 49 and at present into a passive group, endeavors and strives to do justice to the teaching of the Spirit or the teaching of life and to follow it, so that the human beings of this community find and tread the path to themselves and to their own innermost, creation-conditioned being in order to mature and blossom within themselves. And only when the process of practical implementation of the teaching in one's own sphere of life has taken place within the necessary framework are the members from the community of Phi Gu also able to do something for their fellow human beings, primarily by being helpful to other human beings as an example, and secondarily by working for the spreading of the truth in a decent, informative, and non-missionary form. The core group of the 49 is the central community of a few human beings who, together with Billy Edward Albert Meier, who is also just an ordinary member of the core group, do the greatest work to maintain the association. A work that is very diverse and covers many areas. In addition to the care and maintenance of all the buildings, the paths and trails, the garden, the animal enclosure and the woods and plants, etc., through manual work on the centre's grounds in Hinterschmidruti, the headquarters of FIGU, a great deal of other work is done, such as bookkeeping, so also the preparation of meals for the members and workers, the writing of books, articles, brochures, bulletins, etc., as well as their corrections and the printing of all these written works. In addition, there is the supervision of visitors, the Sunday service, greeting visitors, answering their questions, supplying requested books, etc., and the night watch, as well as the work in correction groups and the dispatch of writings and materials. In addition, all the public relations work is carried out, such as giving lectures, public information stands, appearances on radio and television, correspondence by letter and email, internet and computer administration, as well as forum and study group support, trips abroad to give lectures and to look after and support the subsidiary groups of the FIGUI, etc., etc. All this work and much more is mainly done by the core group, as well as most of the financing of all matters and work arising for the association and the centre. In addition to the core group members, the passive members also help with the financing, but they also do a lot of the work. Help is also provided by patrons, friends and sympathizers from all over the world, which makes it possible to carry out the great and important work of all kinds. All the work and duties are of immense importance for the preservation and progress of the community and its members. And since this is so, no work or activity is considered more important, better or more significant than another among the members of FIGU. Nor are the works and activities of core group members considered better, higher or more significant than those of passive members, patrons or sympathizers and friends. Every work, every duty and every activity must be done if the community is to remain alive and prosper. In addition to all the work that core group members do, there is the duty and responsibility of personality and character development, and the working out and formation of all the inner and abiding creational values and all the virtues. And it is precisely this that is the first and foremost priority for the members of the core group of the 49, and also for the passive members. In this relationship, it is very important and of great advantage that the human being seeks out his or her like-minded ones and builds up a unifying and interpersonal relationship with these human beings, through which a sense of belonging is formed, from which strength, love, and confidence are gained in order to be able to fight against all the adversities of life and to be able to cope with it in a dignified and humane way. The core group as a close-knit community strives towards this important form of human coexistence, aware that a lack of connectedness and a lack of a sense of belonging would sooner or later result in the breakup of the community, whereby the individual would inevitably sink into the maelstrom of the immense and huge mass of materialistically out-of-control Earth humans and be swallowed up by it. In addition to its work and duties, the community of the core group naturally also has rights which primarily benefit personal evolution, such as the free use of the meditation center for personal meditation and initiation, as well as the free receipt of all written material, etc. The close contact of the core group with the other members of the core group is also a privilege. The close contact of the core group members with Billy, the wise herald of the modern age, is also of enormous and personality-building benefit, as he is not only a great, dutiful and responsible and worthy role model for his fellow humans in almost all areas, but also distinguishes himself as a wise, humane and extremely empathetic counselor for his fellow humans. But also, the close interaction between the members of the core group is indispensable as a human and supporting factor for advancing in love and wisdom. The help and support of the Plea and friends in various forms is also of great and important value, so that especially the community of the core group of 49 has been able to record remarkable progress in many areas of life and evolution since its foundation in 1975. In spite of all this, the human beings of the community of the core group are in no wise and in no form higher, better, more significant or more important in their position than the members of the passive group. The patrons, friends and sympathizers all over the world, or any other human beings on Earth, or in the vastness of the universe. Nor is Billy in his position any higher, bigger, better, or more significant than any other human being under the earthly heavens or in the vast universe of the creation. For in the end, we are all just human beings. Every woman and man is a human being who, as a small but important cog in the immeasurable gears of creational evolution, has within him or her the honorable, dignified, fulfilling, joyful and loving duty and task of bringing to development and unfoldment the creational part of themselves that they harbor deep within themselves. And that alone counts.
The position of the core group members in FIGU by Nathan Brand, Switzerland.
It is not a privilege to be a core group member of FIGU, but it is an honor for all members, and that includes both core group members and passive members. And this honor, I and all others from our group bear with great satisfaction, with dignity but in humility. This also does not give us the feeling of being better than all other human beings. Everything does not give us more rights, and it also does not make us greater or wiser. We are core group members, but we are human beings first and foremost, just as all other human beings are. And we of the core group are human beings who have come to FIGU for very different individual reasons in order to make our contribution to a good cause. As the youngest core group member, I stand in a circle of down-to-earth and reasonable human beings who all have one thing in common and who all bear with deep humility the honor of being part of a group centered on the silent revolution of the truth. It is the driving force that rewards every effort of every individual and makes everything valuable and priceless because it is the path to true freedom, love, peace, as well as harmony and wisdom. The core group consists of a grouping of different human beings who try and always strive to always see things as they are, even though this is sometimes quite difficult because not all of them are equally close or have very close friendships, but nevertheless feel very strongly connected to each other. There is, when you are in the core group, a feeling of a silent and deep bond and togetherness with all FIGU members, and also that is seen in relation to the passive members. This bond is constantly growing within oneself, spreading and giving security, warmth, safety, and the certainty of living and existing in everything. Being a member of the FIGU core group does not mean that one must necessarily have the best friends in FIGU or that one must find one's life partner in the core group. But it does mean that one is part of a group and is important in it. Very important, in fact. And that one really belongs to this group and is fully accepted by all the members. This is not an acceptance based on simply being tolerated, used, or even exploited, but it means that one can be oneself in every respect, and that everyone's ideas, words, suggestions, works, and deeds have exactly the same validity and value. To be a core group member is not always easy because the difficulties as well as the correct way of life are always made clear to one. So this is also in the respect that life is not always comfortable or simply a pleasure, but very often requires very hard work on oneself, which however makes life worth living in the first place. And the whole of this form is especially the most important thing that remains for the human being when he or she has nothing left, or when he or she is in distress and no longer knows what to do, and when for him or her the efforts for progress and evolution are still the only values for being able to learn. Life in the Figu is connected with constant learning, with arguments and battles with oneself, but also with joys and successes that must be learned to deal with, which is indeed often not easy because one must not become arrogant or careless through the effects of progress. It is a life in which one repeatedly encounters one's own and external resistances that challenge one and with which one must deal in a clarifying and understanding manner. It is a life in which one voluntarily submits to a healthy order that does not consist of coercion and restriction, and in which there is no room for constriction, but it is an order that ensures that one can live with it in freedom. In the end, however, it is also a life that is connected with a very large amount of one's own work, the successes of which one can continuously enjoy as good fruits and which will one day be enjoyed by all human beings if they only strive within the same framework for their evolution. For real love, for their inner and outer freedom, as well as for their inner and outer peace and for harmony, as we core group members strive to do in our community of free interests. Figu.
With your permission, I would like to ask you for a printout of the entire work, which I will then present to our spiritual leadership with an oral translation.
This was supposed to go through our proofreading process first.
The spelling and grammar mistakes are not relevant for the intended purpose. I will take the final manuscript with me for the actual translation into our languages and for distribution only after everything has been corrected in the final frame edition.
As you like, Ptah. Then I will print you a copy of each article right away. It will only take a few minutes. One moment, please.
Here. At the printing machine, a red light flashes, which I have never seen before. What does that mean?
It is a warning light that says the toner cartridge is about to run out and needs to be replaced.
Interesting.
Even our primitive computer technology contains some small wonders.
It would seem so. But now a question. Do you have time next week to do some more work for us?
Of course, you know that.
Thank you, good. Then we will put them together finally, after which I will bring them to you.
Let me ask you a perhaps somewhat strange question. Our vehicles, cars, buses, trams, trains, as well as certain airplanes, etc., usually have their seats facing both the direction of travel and the opposite direction. Somehow the seats in the direction of travel have been scary to me since my childhood, because I always had the thought that in the event of a collision, I could fly away and fly forward. For this reason, I always sat down on a seat in the train and tram in the opposite direction to the direction of travel, that is to say, with my back in the direction of travel. I always did this because I thought that if there was a collision, I would be better protected. Could that somehow be a stupid thought of mine?
Not at all. Because our early ancestors were already working on this, and their studies showed that it is actually much more dangerous when seats are placed in the direction of travel and used in this wise. So, decrees were issued that seats could only be placed and used in vehicles when driving in the opposite direction, which saved a great many lives. That is how it appears in our annals.
Ah, then your early ancestors also had means of travel and transportation like we have here on the Earth?
Our early ancestors also had to start on a lower level in their entire development, so also in technical terms, so that they too had to make do with ground vehicles and simple flying apparatuses before they became capable of space travel. They then undertook studies and gained experience in the arrangement of seats in modes of transport, which showed that the best and safest arrangement of seats was in the opposite direction to that of the vehicle, because many accidents also occurred on the roads and in the air, often resulting in many deaths. When this was recognized through tests and studies, A law was passed which aimed to ensure that in those vehicles and flying apparatuses where it was possible, all seating for passengers could only be arranged in the opposite direction of travel. For logical reasons, only the managers of the vehicles and flying apparatuses were allowed to sit in the direction of travel and perform their duty.
Then my thoughts were not so stupid.
Certainly not.
Last time we spoke, you made some predictions. How about today? Do you have any more news regarding predictions?
There are, yes. With regard to Mount St. Helens, it should be said that it will become active again in the first 10 days of March, along with a volcano in Southern America, which will also show new activities, as will other volcanoes around the world. Also in the month of March, an earthquake in South Africa will be the talk of the town, which will be about 5 points on the Richter scale, and in which a number of miners will lose their lives in an underground mine. Then it also turns out that the polar stratospheric vortex that forms in winter is greatly magnified, which has already happened. This time, however, this one expands much further south than normal, resulting in a huge ozone hole in spring. Irresponsible scientists will again claim that the whole thing does not pose any great danger in terms of UV solar radiation, but this is not the real truth. These are the preliminary data in relation to forecasts up to the 12th of March.
Then I would like to ask you now, is it possible that you could possibly take me to the red-brown planet Mars again?
It will be possible. But why do you want that?
If it is possible, I would like to see one of those beautiful sunrises on Mars again, because there they have such a different effect in their wonderful blue radiation than here on the Earth. I also feel the need, even if it may seem strange to you, to take another walk on the 27,000-meter-high volcanic mountain Olympus Mons. It was a very special experience for me last time, even though I was cut off from the outside world by the spacesuit. And if it is possible, I would also like to take a small piece of that volcanic matter with me, as it was shown to me by Quetzal and Simyase, and in which sulfur bacteria were found when I was allowed to look at it in the apparatus.
Your wish does not seem strange to me at all, my friend, because I too sometimes have the desire to see certain places and things again, or to walk around in certain places. Of course, I will personally fulfill this wish on occasion. But if I am not able to do it myself in the foreseeable future, then I will commission Florina to do it. However, as far as the sulfur matter is concerned, for your own safety, it might not be advisable to take any of it with you. And what more is to be said? For more than 2,000 years, you have been the only person on the planet Earth who has been able to make such space journeys and visit planets and moons of the SOL system as well as alien systems and galaxies. Emmanuel was the last person who was born on Earth to be able to make such journeys into space, and this was made possible by my great-grandfather Gabriel.
What do you think about the matter of sulfur? Why should it be dangerous for me? And your great-grandfather Gabriel was, of course. Nowadays they spell the name with one A. What does the name mean again?
The mighty one of the creation. Think of the authorities regarding sulfur matter from Mars if they became aware of it.
But you also brought me metals and crystals.
They contain no living organisms.
I see. Okay, then not. But there is something else. On Mars I saw the polar ice masses, but also on your devices, that there is a lot of ice under the surface of Mars, which used to be water on the surface and has seeped away. As far as I know, the earthly scientists still have no idea about this, so I would like to know whether they were not able to determine this with their probes.
Before this fact brings real knowledge through research, it will still take some time. But now I have some things to discuss with you concerning our higher spiritual teaching, if you do not mind.
Of course. We can start right away. because I have no questions or wishes at the moment.